There is no shortage of Star Wars fans who are upset about lore breaks that they just don't understand. And if you're anything like these commenters, you were probably left upset and confused when the Acolyte tackled lightsaber bleeding. So screw it, I'm going to explain how Kyber crystal bleeding works and go over some of the misinformation out there. For those who don't know, Kyber crystal bleeding is the canon process of turning a lightsaber red. You see, Kyber crystals to an extent are sentient. They have a will, they have a desire to obey the will of the Force, and they also come in several different collectible colors. However, because crystals default to the will of the Force, if you want to use one for some dark side deeds, you're going to have to corrupt it. This process is known as bleeding, and it's accomplished by pouring all of your hate, anger, and rage into a Kyber crystal. This dominates its will with your own, causing it to bleed. Some people were upset when this occurred in the Acolyte because of two key pieces of misinformation, but don't worry, I'm gonna walk you through it. The first being that if all that needs to happen in order to cause a Kyber to bleed is to be holding a lightsaber while angry, why didn't Anakin's bleed in Revenge of the Sith? The answer to that can be found in every other instance of Kyber crystal bleeding. Bleeding a crystal requires the user to have direct access to the crystal itself. When Anakin was performing his dark deeds in Revenge of the Sith, his lightsaber hilt was perfectly intact and his Kyber crystal was shielded. On the flip side, Soul's lightsaber was damaged and his Kyber crystal exposed. Like I said, direct touch or direct access is a requirement. And as you can see in the picture above, the Kyber was exposed with the tip of it touching Osha's hand. The second bit of misinformation was that Osha was able to accomplish his task way too easily, with many citing that Vader had to go through an entire ordeal in order to get his crystal to actually obey him. But again, this is explained in every other canon instance. Outside of requiring access to the Kyber in order to turn it red, every single instance is different. Ben Solo's ordeal was so intense that he cracked his Kyber crystal and cut his hand open. On the flip side, Dagan Gera from Jedi Survivor didn't struggle to bleed his crystal at all and was able to accomplish the task rather quickly.
Yes. It was my discovery, my home, and they just expected me to throw it away.
Dagan, wait.
I refused to obey and was betrayed by the one I trusted most.
Then you have Osha, who was full of murderous rage and choking out Soul whilst touching her Kyber crystal. The only similarity across all of these is that you have to be touching your Kyber crystal and feeling all of this hatred. Vader's process, meanwhile, was an outlier. What a lot of people forget is that Vader was performing a Sith ritual. The ritual portion isn't a requirement to bleed a crystal outright, but it is a requirement for a Sith. Vader was at the site of his crippling on a planet teeming with the dark side, and bleeding a crystal that he had forcibly taken from its master. These conditions are wildly different from every other instance and thus produced wildly different results. So yeah, the Acolyte didn't break canon when it comes to lightsaber bleeding, it was actually quite consistent. But as always, that's just my opinion, and as always, I want to hear from you. Who's your favorite red lightsaber wielder in Star Wars? And also, what's your favorite instance of Kyber crystal bleeding? Whatever it be, leave it in the comments, let me know.